You're listening to The New Paris. I'm your host, Lindsay Trenuta. In the canon of Paris narratives, few focus on oddball finds and secrets lurking right beneath our noses. But Vanessa Grall, more commonly known as Messy Nessy, has made it her calling card. For more than a decade, she has sussed out offbeat tales and fascinating individuals who have shaped our world and shared them on her website. She's also published several guidebooks to help travelers get beyond the obvious. More than a year ago, she opened a storefront, Messy Nessy's Cabinet, a shop full of curiosities that she joins me to talk about today. Vanessa, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lindsay. Happy to be here.
It's been a long time since we've been in each other's orbits. And I can't believe it's taken this long for us to have like a formal chat about everything that you've done, but here we are, and maybe it's the best time because you have a lot to discuss. And people know you for something very specific that you created many, many, many years ago. But I'm not sure everyone fully gets your background. So you grew up in London, but moved to Paris. Is that and your family is French. So what was that story?
I don't know if I have the most interesting moving to Paris story, to be honest. So, but I mean, I guess I was 25. So that was about 15 years ago. This was the height of a recession. I had lost my job at a magazine in London about a year prior. I'd been like butting heads with the two male founders and they just like leave.
Shocking.
And I was like, okay. But so after that, I was a bit lost. I was working in retail to support myself and just like feeling a bit lost and chaotic. And my mom, who's American, but had spent a lot of time in France and had married a Frenchman, suggested that I go to Paris. And it took me a long time to listen to her. I hadn't really spent much time in Paris. I didn't have much of an interest in living there. But, you know, I'm half French, so it was somewhere that I could go relatively hassle-free and just see what happened. And obviously, as soon as I got here, I was just like dunked into a whole new world of inspiration. So, and a few months before that, I had started this WordPress blog in London.
And, you had, okay.
Yeah, and I had enjoyed, pretending to be some kind of journalist. And, I had really enjoyed my job at the magazine in London. So I wanted to see if I could, try making that on my own online. And I mean, I look back at some of those early articles and I cringe at most of them. But, within a few months, I had like a lot of articles that started to go viral on Reddit. And this was like right at the dawn of banner advertising's like golden age. So as soon as the blog was like ready to accommodate ads, I was, making enough to like get on my feet and rent my own apartment in Paris. And then I also like met my husband pretty much as soon as I arrived, like the first weekend in Paris.
Like me. Yeah.
So I ended up really liking Paris and it was a good move for me. So yeah.
Well, clearly, because Messy Nessy, which is still the name of your website, which I love. I love that you have not changed that. And there's the chic element, right? There's the word chic.
Yeah, I'm trying to drop that. It's like another cringe thing that.
Yeah, but you know what? Look, I was lost in Cheeseland for an obscenely long time and needed to graduate from that. So this is part of our process, but. Messy Nessy has really become a reference in all these years, and a reference for like offbeat, underreported, and sometimes secret stories pertaining to France, not only Paris. So I'm sort of wondering, because that, I'm not surprised that went viral on Reddit of all places, especially early on. Did that interest in offbeat things start when you were young? Is that like always who you were?
Well, I have young kids now, so I'm actually trying to I'm looking for signs and clues in them of who I was. And I see them playing on their own and like starting these elaborate little stories in their heads, it feels very familiar. And I think because like everything I do, whether it's an article or an Instagram post or a window display now, has to have like some kind of elaborate, unusual twist to it. I think I'm probably like a nightmare to work with because I just can't do anything simply. But like the French connection, I mean, obviously my dad is French. He was born and raised in Nîmes. And so whenever we weren't in school, we were, growing up and like coming of age in this little village near Uzes. And my parents are definitely history buffs. So I have like really nice memories of, like digging for Roman coins with my dad around the Pont du Gard, or like, just walking around little ghost towns with my mom on a day trip. And I'm sure that helped, like teetering between like English and French identity. I think I saw that there was, just like you, I think there was definitely a gap in the internet at that time for blogs written in French about Paris and like all of its secrets. And I think, when I arrived, there were very few blogs that were getting much traction. There was yours. I think there was David Leibowitz. I mean, obviously I'm missing a few others, but there was definitely this open space with blogs on the internet for Anglophone writers to have a voice in Paris again. And I think now, like in 2025, you arrive in Paris and it's just like all Instagram. And there's a lot of Paris influencers now. So I think it's a bit more of a challenge today for people to carve out a space and do something different. So I think we were quite lucky at that time.
I do think so. I think we came around at a time when there was still a lot to be shaped on the internet. And then if you could get your spot and then hold on to it or build it, and you've done that in a lot of different ways, obviously, which we're going to get to, because I think the smart thing is to diversify and then see how you can extend that to other ventures, other projects, and also grow with it, because you're still with it. It's changed with you.
Yeah, but I mean, I still do like, because I don't want to say like, I do still recognize the value in like these iconic or like quote unquote cliche things that continue to draw foreign fascination. And I actually think like I have quite a lot of fun highlighting something that's kind of right under our noses. And like I think a good example of that is the eau de Seine, the bottled Seine water that I sell. Because like I'm still amazed that like no Parisian in all of the centuries of the Seine's existence and like all of the mass-produced miniature Eiffel Towers that they've been selling, like no one thought to bottle Seine water before. I think like after I'd got it in the shop, I realized that Marcel Duchamp in the 1920s had bottled Paris air. So he was like kind of someone was thinking about it. But like once I was thinking about, okay, what sort of Paris related souvenir can I create? It was kind of like the first thing that came into my head. And I think.
Do you think it hasn't been done because there's a fear that someone would try to actually drink it?
Probably.
Because,
I mean, honestly, I don't know if I should say this on air, but I don't know if it's legal, to be honest. Like,
right.
I don't know if it's illegal. I seal it in my kitchen with wax so that like it's quite obvious that you're not supposed to drink it. And it says like, do not drink. And then it like follows up with this kind of poetic thing of why I've bottled it. But like, yeah, you're probably right. Just for like safety reasons. No one ever thought to do something that stupid. But
well, France is very much the country of do it and apologize later.
Yes, so that's my Frenchness coming out.
Right. But go back before we get into like where you're actually selling that. Go back into, I guess, your sort of story vault. Is there something of all the tales you've told and I don't mean tales as in untrue tales. I just mean, all these like amazing stories you've told on Messy Nessy. Is there one that you think has been the most fun to share or to uncover?
I honestly, there are so many that I love. I mean, I'm maybe like proud of the stories that have had an impact, because there's quite a few articles about like maybe forgotten women artists that went pretty viral. And I think, like, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I do think that they helped generate like a wider revival of interest in them. Like, I don't know, there was one about Suzanne Valadon, whose studio is preserved at the Musée de Montmartre. I don't know, maybe that was 5 years ago. And then, it's nice to see now that she has this major retrospective. I honestly, I don't know whether like they have that kind of impact, but I do know that like journalists or screenwriters, they reach out to me and like they'll I speak with readers. So I kind of get a sense of who my readers are. I think my favorite also is when teachers reach out and say that they used an article to teach a class today. So that's really nice. But like in terms of Paris, maybe like my favorite Paris ones, I love the one that when I found out, which was because of my husband, because my husband is originally like Auvergnat, which he's from Auvergne. And basically his dad told me that, you know, all of the cafes in Paris were originally, it started by these Auvergnats who were coming into Paris, and they started by selling like coal and wood. And then so they would have also offer refreshments, and so that, you know, they would have like wine or like I think it was lemon, some kind of lemon drink that they would sell, and then that basically evolved into cafes. And Auvergnat are still, you know, a lot of the major famous iconic cafes are still owned by this sort of like Auvergnat community. So that was really fun to find that like Paris cafes, like, you know, the most significant like iconic part of Paris life was sort of started by these country bumpkins.
Right.
I love that one. And then there's one that I love to repost again, which is the treehouse bars of the Belle Époque, which started from a postcard that I found at the flea market of this treehouse where people were picnicking in a tree. Like they'd built a tree, and it was like this whole like restaurant, just like not really outside of Paris, just in the suburbs, because Robinson. And you could get a roast chicken, like, and they would like use a pulley and send up like roast chicken and champagne in a picnic basket. And just, yeah, it seemed like they were having a lot of fun in the Belle Époque for sure.
Well, for many reasons, I'm sure. But those are really, I mean, those are really interesting stories that I think help us understand Paris of today, because they did shape the city. And I think what you've done with your book series, which is very cheeky and very smart, which is to say, you know, don't be a tourist. So don't be a tourist in Paris, don't be a tourist in London, is also a way of understanding this place. So would you say that you want people to be more artful travelers? I think I read that on as a description somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I have no campaign against tourists to make. I realize the cheekiness of it can be sometimes like read in the wrong way. But now, you know, I'm sitting in my shop now, hearing people's reactions on the other side of the window. And I think mostly it makes people laugh.
Yeah.
It was actually just like a category, like a drop-down menu category on my website, like Don't Be a Tourist, where I put like all of my off-grid stories. So I just thought it was a punchy title to put on the cover of my first book, and it kind of solved the daunting task of like naming my book. But yeah, I do think that experiencing unfamiliar cities or environments, like not just traveling to to them, but like really trying to immerse yourself, does something to you. Like it really awakens your curiosity for sure. And then, you know, if you return home, you bring that curiosity back with you, and you're able to see and appreciate where you grew up in a different way, and like, you know, maybe bring something fresh to your community, like whether it's like new perspectives or new flavors or a book. I mean, I don't think I would have been able to write Don't Be a Tourist London if I hadn't left. So I think that, I mean, this is going to sound like naive, but I think if we all traveled more in a more thoughtful way than just like ticking off landmarks and, you know, top 10 lists, I think that we would probably all get along better and understand each other better. Because I think like travel can be very freeing and like an underrated form of education and independent learning. Because like, you know, we can like immerse ourselves in other cultures and like think differently than we've been programmed to think at home. So I really believe that travel is education. And, you know, like if you want to travel that way, my theory is that, you know, to do that, we kind of need to deprogram ourselves a little bit from mainstream tourism, which means putting less weight on these kind of iconic tourist attractions. But, you know, if you want to do that, it's totally okay too. But I think that we should also trust our own instincts and try to listen to our own mood a bit more, like get playful and experimental with how we travel. Like, because that's how each of the Don't Be a Tourist books, the chapters are inspired by a different mood or persona, just to like kind of get people a little bit more playful in the way that they travel. So like it kind of prompts you to try on like a different character and see where that takes you. And you know, maybe that's not the most convenient way to travel or visit a city, but I don't think that travel was supposed to be convenient to begin with. Like,
agreed.
It was supposed to be difficult. It was supposed to be a way to like find enlightenment. Like, I think that was Siddhartha that literally traveled to find enlightenment, and like, you know, it was supposed to be a way to find adventure and bring back knowledge.
I agree. I think it's become too easy, and there needs to be a balance. So obviously there are cities that are trying to, from a governmental perspective, trying to regulate. But I think it's also upon us to make that effort as well, and to stop going to the same places, and to realize that it's not just about what's fun for you, but also what is good for the place that you're experiencing.
Exactly. And, you know, at the end of the day, even no matter what my theory is, there's also just some like books that like highlight wonderful little places to pick out randomly from that don't get enough love are a good thing, because, you know, those places have the potential to make us feel all the feels, and feel a lot better than, you know, maybe some of these like major exhausting landmarks do. Or like, you know, super trendy restaurants, you know, sometimes they're a bit disappointing, but like, you know, these kind of mom and pop shops and restaurants and tiny museums, these places, like, they need our support, and they will be sad when they're gone.
So all of that guides your selection then in each of the Don't Be a Tourist books, sort of lesser explored establishments and areas.
I don't think there's at any point, I mean, I don't think at any point I say go to the Eiffel Tower for sure. I'll bring you to spots around Paris where you can see it from in an unusual spot. And like David Sedaris, and even my mom was like, "What are you saying?" Like, what? My third chapter is called Anywhere But the Louvre, and David Sedaris has this hilarious, I've discovered it recently, has this amazing podcast episode, I think it's an old one, on This American Life, where he just basically goes off for an hour about how much he hates the Louvre. There's a way to see the Louvre, I think, that's different. And I'm really excited for Elaine's new book about the Louvre, to gain new perspective and how to see it. I mean, my favorite way to see the Louvre right now, or only way that I'll go see it, is to go to see the Napoleon apartments, which is kind of, I feel like, is the kind of secret side of the Louvre.
But yeah, you're trying to get people to see and do other things, which, you know, there's so many things to do in this city that makes sense. And from these books, I understand that you launched actually a travel concierge offering and service, and you have a private members sort of club, a key. It's people can pay a monthly or annual fee, right, to become sort of a key holder.
Right. Well, I don't think the concierge service necessarily launched because of the books. I think it was around maybe the same time. I think Don't Be a Tourist in New York was probably when I launched the concierge service. I'd say it was more kind of just like an evolution from my website, which had been, you know, online since, I don't know, 2016 or something, I can't remember, and had like hundreds and hundreds of scattered articles about really cool places to visit around the world, not just Paris, New York, and London. So truthfully, I needed to first start organizing my website content better, especially for the stuff that was proving to be quite useful. And so also around this time, a lot of the editorial websites, like the larger ones, were going behind a paywall. But I knew that even if I might have, you know, similar sort of traffic levels to some of them, it wouldn't have been a right move for me. But I knew that I was going to have to adapt in a way, and I wanted to get ahead of it. So while leaving all of my content open and free in all of its messiness, I also started to accumulate and index all of my travel tips in like this kind of new and separate members site. But because I love doing things really complicated and making like that extra weird step, I wanted to add something that was different and personal to like the average internet subscription model, which ended up being this kind of like direct line to me, which I called the concierge. And
I see. Okay.
So it's like kind of part of the sort of wider, it's just like an extra service that makes it very unscalable for me.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, one person. I mean, you do have a team.
Well, yeah, but I won't let anyone else respond to the concierge messages. So
right. So it's hard. It's hard.
I love helping. Like, I just can't help myself to like share what people should do. So like, even if I know I only have half an hour to respond, I'll end up spending like an hour, or but that's okay. Like, it's all for the love of it. And I definitely get a lot of concierge emails about Paris, but I encourage key holders to share some personal interests or like anecdotes about their trip with me that can sort of help me suggest something a bit personal, like almost bespoke. So, something that might like help inspire their work, or maybe some places that they could take their like teenage daughter that's going through like a difficult phase, so. But it can also get more elaborate, maybe like thinking of out of the box locations for a small wedding. There was this guy that wanted to sail like 40 friends down the Seine, and then in small individual boats, like separate,
like
everyone,
his own Olympics opening ceremony.
Exactly. And then end up in the catacombs. So, and this was for his birthday. So it can get quite elaborate, but fun.
Did you pull that one off?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I obviously reach out, like I have this kind of address book of people. So I would connect him with this person and like, reach in even for like, finding locations like for a wedding or whatever. Like with that, I'm kind of like, you're getting into my own kind of like black book of addresses.
Amazing.
And, key holders become key holders because they know that my tastes and interests align with theirs. So they trust me to research their trips for them. And like, but I'll also often get requests for places that I haven't traveled to. And instead of saying like, oh, well, sorry, I haven't been there, it's still my job to research their trip as if I'm going there. So whether I'm reaching out to sources or just using my own instincts to like put together an itinerary that kind of includes a nice balance of, small little house museums or family-run restaurants, a flea market.
As you would plan your own trip.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and obviously, we're speaking. You're in your own boutique. So, in the last year, you opened a brick and mortar shop in the Fifth Arrondissement. It's like your very own personal cabinet of curiosities. The French love that, and it's called Messy Nessy's Cabinet. Right? Cabinet.
Yeah.
Was that always an ambition for you? Or was this sort of the right opportunity came along and...
Yeah, no, owning a shop was definitely not something that I had on the cards. But I will say, like, I played shopkeeper a lot when I was a kid. But after COVID, I think, like everyone, I had a lot of time to think, and I was looking for a change. I wanted to stretch my legs a bit. But it was also by chance because the landlord of my office announced that they were selling, and I had to basically either look for another closed space or consider something a bit different. And my old office was very conveniently located above my apartment. So I was looking for something really close to home. I'd also just had twin babies at home, so I didn't want to go very far. And so I was coming out of this little park down the street, which is now opposite my shop, and I saw that the painter who was here before me had put up a sign. I'd seen him every day. I knew who he was, and he'd put up a sign saying "Bail à céder," which means like lease for sale. And it was just one of those moments that felt like, a sign that was like really a sign. So I just went for it. And maybe the fact that it wasn't a major long-term goal or ambition kind of made it less daunting, and I didn't get too lost in the planning. But I also had some things to sell already. I'm the publisher of 3 books, so I had those to sell. And I also had this website that's literally like a cabinet of curiosities online. I mean, that's literally the byline of the site. So
Yeah.
it's full of stories and objects that can kind of guide my curation. And so, yeah, it just kind of snowballed from there.
It's so great, and you've already hosted events, which I think bring it to life in a big way. And even though it's on a calm street in the Fifth, it is so perfectly located next to all sorts of areas and places that people are and visitors are likely to be exploring. I believe there is an interesting backstory on the street, though, right?
Yeah.
I think I saw you did a video on this. What is the sort of intriguing story?
This street is really special, and it's like very hidden away behind Notre Dame, which feels kind of on brand for me. But it has a great history. That just the fact that it has this lost river running beneath it, called the Bièvre, which Haussmann sort of closed up because it kind of became a polluted river, but it's still very much flowing beneath us. And one thing I didn't mention in that little video that I made about the street is that Mitterrand, the president, lived here, and not just like he literally lived across the street from my shop. And I think that I don't know what, because usually presidents don't live outside of the Élysée Palace, but because I think he was this socialist president, I think he was making a statement like, no, I'm not going to live in this palace. So he was living here during his presidency, and the whole street was closed up, and I think that was pretty unusual. So a lot of Parisians and French people know the Rue de Bièvre. Even if they live on the other side of town, they know about this tiny little street. When I say like, yeah, my shop is on Rue de Bièvre, they're like, oh yeah, I know Rue de Bièvre, of course. C'est mythique. I'm like,
so interesting. Mythique. I love that word. Yeah.
But there's like, I'm the only shop on the like retail shop on the street, but the whole street is like, the other like spaces are basically artisanal shops. Like I have the only trunk making school in the world next door. But like I still get some of the painters, old students or models or patrons that come in and they're like, wait, where's the painter? So I'll show them that like I still have a few of his paintings. They're here and for sale for him. Because
that's wonderful.
I didn't want to just erase his story here. Like he used these wooden floors as his palette. You can still see like little paint like bits in the floor. And so, because like he worked out of here in this gallery, like you could come in and buy his paintings, where he made them, and you just don't really see that anymore. So I was kind of sad to see him close, even though I was the one that was, taking over. But I really want to create this whole kind of experience when you come into my shop. Like I want people to feel like they're stepping back in time to a different era when shops did actually look like this. Like I want them to feel like they've stumbled upon a secret, on a secret street, like in Narnia's wardrobe. Like I'm all about creating the experience and the romance of it. I love seeing people just like being curious and like taking their time to look at every single piece like it's a little museum, even if they don't buy anything. I really appreciate that kind of customer that just takes their time. I like that just as much as someone that walks in, knows exactly what they want. They just like pick up a book or a bottle of sand water. And shopkeeping is just like a whole new job, a new calling. It's become like my third child, but I love it. Like, and I get to meet the neighbors I never met before and like feel like this kind of little community and like ambassador. It's really fun. I'm loving it.
It's the lifeblood of the neighborhood. You're part of that now. Yeah, it's really special to see. And I think also, I'm sure the painter, even if he didn't say it to you, probably feels relieved that someone like you has taken it over and given it a special life.
I hope so. I mean, we're friends. He comes and visits me like once a month. He's a special guy. He's one of my people that I often had spotted from my like people watching videos. Because he's a very elegant dresser as well. So
well, that leads me into my next question, which I people who are listening might also know those videos that you're referring to where you film these amazing snippets of life, but from your sort of elevated perch at home. There's always a quirky cast of characters, but also like really moving everyday moments. There's also though a lady who walks around with a bird on her shoulder. I think you've done that one recently. What catches your attention? Sort of like when you're seated there or standing and looking beneath you, what are you looking for? Or are you just sort of, you keep the play button on and you're just recording as much as you can?
No, definitely not. Because I mean, I can't be up there as much because I'm now at the shop. But like before, when I was up there, it was mainly just like a moment to procrastinate. So I would like go outside and just stand there, and if I saw someone, I would start capturing it. But I can't really say there's something specific. I mean, obviously the woman who scoots around Paris with her cockatoo definitely catches your eye. But generally, I guess it's someone that's like telling a story, whether it's through what they're wearing or a facial expression, the way they're walking, or like interacting with someone. And then, yeah, like I'll take that clip. It'll probably sit in my camera roll for like a year before I realize like, oh, hey, that person is telling the same story. This person I just saw today. And then I'll like kind of start piecing something together and out pops this video.
You also put something like that together last week for International Rights of Women Day. And it was really beautiful and moving, and it went absolutely viral as you could expect. But it was really a beautiful combination of these images or these videos that you had taken clearly over a span of time, women of all walks of life, paired with audio of a poet, right? Reading her work. So is it that you're just sort of, you realize there's an opportunity to put these things together and tell a story, tell your own story out of these other people's stories, and then it comes together when you think people need a message like that most?
Yeah, I think it over time I started realizing that like there's definitely something to take away from these videos, and I think that's like basically how being observant of each other can help us in so many ways. Like just sitting quietly at a cafe or like a pigeon on a balcony, we can learn so much about each other and humanity, and we can feel so many emotions. Like, you know, we can look at one person and feel empathy, and we can look in the other direction and feel like joy for this sweet little moment, and we can see ourselves in other people. And we can see our vulnerabilities, we can see our quirks, we can see our strengths, we can see things that we admire or that we don't admire so much in ourselves. So I think it's taken off so much because there is this deep-rooted need for a human connection and to see ourselves in others. And I think if we can feel empathy for like our least favorite person, then we're starting to be in a better place.
Oh, it's beautiful. Honestly, the one from last week was really moving, and it felt really necessary. So I think that's sort of like the way I would summarize everything you're doing is it's necessary. And the joy and the creativity and the way you've brought people together within the boutique is really special. So is there something like, not that you absolutely do not need more jobs for yourself, but is there something you're hoping to do within the Messy Nessy universe in the coming months or the coming year?
Yeah, other than a holiday, which I'm always looking forward to. I don't know if I have one coming up. But speaking of these people watching videos, so my because I became a mother as well, I decided that my next book could be a children's book. But to be honest, I don't know if it's just going to be a children's book, but I've written it, and I'm currently working with an illustrator of a book that's based off the whole people watching concept. But in this instance, it's my children that are watching from the window and kind of learning about humans and life and little lessons by watching things unfold on the street and little connections between humans and like seeing themselves in others and just being more observant. So that's a book I'm working on. I'm a publishing house now, so I don't really have the kind of deadlines that maybe a traditional publishing house gives. So I can't really tell you when it's out. And I can probably tell you the illustrator is Carol Guillot. I don't know. I've never. Yeah, Paris Breakfast.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
She just lives across the river to me, so we meet once a week, and we're just like, we have this massive. She lives in this very exactly where you think she would live, in this wonderful little attic apartment on the Ile Saint-Louis, and so we've been storyboarding all of our people on her wall, and it's really fun to work with her. So yeah, I've got that going. I guess I have some little design projects, because now that I have a store, it's there are certain French brands that are asking me to do design collaborations with. So that's exciting for me, because it's also now something that I can physically have in the store and sell, not just online.
Totally.
So yeah, little things. But I think maybe 10 years ago, I was more ambitious. And not everyone has ambition, but I'm also just content to kind of be happy. And I think as you grow up, you realize you don't need that much. You just need to be happy. And I think especially this kind of shopkeeping role, just the everyday connections that you have with people that come into the shop is just so nice. And so yeah, I'm just happy being a shopkeeper in Paris. It also writes stories to people that aren't in Paris, and it's just I'm at a good place.
I think that's a dream job for a lot of people. So you've created something quite fantastic for yourself. And ambition is a complicated term, as we know. And I think you're right. As we're growing older and we've been doing storytelling for a long time, our goals change and how we fit into this universe changes. And I think your evolution is really stunning to see, because you've now created this space where people can feel it in a new way. So in any case, to me, that feels like a full circle moment. So whatever you do from here is just a continuation of that spirit. So good for you.
Thank you so much.
And I hope everyone will then be able to come see you, come to an event, come pick up an object, ask for the story, maybe ask you for some travel itinerary assistance. And Nessy, where can they find you? It's Rue de Bièvre.
Yeah, right. If you're coming to see Notre Dame, come to see me. I'm right behind it. I'm there Monday to Friday. Not Saturdays is kind of my kids, but yeah, I'll be here.
Go meet the lady behind all the amazing stories. Vanessa, thank you so much.
This was such a pleasure.
That's the show for today. If you're listening on Spotify, be sure to check out the poll related to this episode by scrolling down in your app. There are more exciting conversations to come this season, so I hope you'll subscribe or share the show with a friend if you've been enjoying what you've heard so far. As always, you can find more from me at lindsaytrimuta.com and at the New Paris Dispatch on Substack. À très bientôt.